Hello, and welcome to Medusa's Kitchen with another episode of Chef Greg. And today we're going to make skordalia, which is a Greek garlic dip. It's a family tradition. Ever since I was a young kid, my father always had us make skordalia when we were sick. Anybody who worked in the restaurant that got sick, it was always make them a batch of skordalia to help them kill the virus and get well. I'm not going to claim that it has any superpowers, but it does help people get through sickness. I'm not going to claim that it can fight COVID. I thankfully haven't had it, but that's neither here nor there. It's a delicious garlic dip that also has roots in the Greek traditions. Skordalia is served at the funeral dinners after services with fried fish or broiled fish. Skordalia is usually a staple condiment. It was a staple appetizer in my restaurant, in my family's restaurant. My brother Mike is making a version of it and doing very well. He's got some exciting flavors, and he's been at it for a good 5 years, and most of the people that live in the Lake Geneva area, Milwaukee, so forth, are familiar with what he's doing as well. And so today I'm going to show you how to make my skordalia recipe, and it's popular. I was always the one that had to make it in the family because it was kicked up a notch. There was quite a bit of garlic in it, but I use a lot of lemon, and that's the way I like it. So I'm going to start today with showing you how to make it. So I've kind of refined my recipe since I first started. I used to use sliced blanched almonds that were skinless, and I found that using almond flour, which is basically just almonds ground up, works a lot better because this recipe is very sensitive to heat and cold, and you have to puree it to get it nice and fluffy and spreadable and smooth. And having the almonds already ground helps with that process to keep the mix from getting too hot, because over mixing this can cause a problem. And there's only 7 ingredients in this recipe, and but it's all about technique, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So I have 1 cup of almond flour. Garlic activates as soon as the skin is taken off the clove, and that's one of the key things about this skordalia recipe is if you're making it for medicinal purposes, you have to make it, you have to peel the garlic right now. It's not something that you can buy peeled or chopped. It needs to be done right now. So for this recipe, I use 1.5 bulbs of garlic, which is about 15 bulbs. Also, fresh lemon juice, a great investment. Fresh lemon juice is all we used in the restaurant. We had a lemon juicer. We'd do 2, 3, 4 quarts a day. Cooking and doing these recipes that I'm doing, it's all about fresh and the best product you can get. The recipes are easy, but getting the ingredients right is a big part of cooking as well. You really need to get the best possible stuff you can, and you'll have the best results that way. I've squeezed some lemon juice ahead of time here. It's going to take 4 ounces. We need 1/2 tablespoon of kosher salt. And for this recipe, for years, we've always made it with cayenne pepper. And when I started making my own hot sauce, it's cayenne pepper based with 8 other different peppers, but the majority of the pepper in my hot sauce is cayenne, so I use my hot sauce. And I use half a teaspoon. If you were using the cayenne pepper, if you know, obviously you don't have my hot sauce, it's a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Now we want to get this blended up and break down that garlic before we add our bread and water. If we try to add the bread and the oil and the water all at once, we run the risk of that garlic not being broken down enough. So we just want to run this for about 30 seconds just to get this garlic nicely chopped up. Okay, so we'll get this out of the way. Now comes time to add the bread. And another important part of this thing, you know, I have a piece of bread that's been sitting out for a day, and I bought a loaf this morning, and you can just see how gummy and how it sticks together. You don't want to use fresh bread for this recipe. You want to use a day-old bread. And let me set this here. I'll throw this. It's got a hard crust. You cut the crust off. And when you're cutting bread or cutting the crust off of bread, let the knife do the work. Use the seesaw action. Let the blades. It was one of the things that I had to teach every new hostess or busboy when they were getting a basket of bread for somebody at the table. You know, they would push on my bread without using the knife, and it would squish that beautiful fresh baked bread, as opposed to using the knife, letting that do the work. It's a common problem that a lot of novices have, is, you know, you let the knife do the work, and you don't make the bread look terrible. Now I've already cleaned up 8 ounces of bread here. So, you know, this was just the last piece I need. But can you see how this bread, it's not sticking together like that fresh stuff was? Okay, now we need 8 ounces of very, very cold water. And I've got ice in it. I mean, this is important that we have cold water. Now, when we used to make this at my family's restaurant, we'd make this in a 5-gallon batch. And so we had to use some ice in that water, because when we would mix a batch that big, the only way that we could keep it from getting too hot and turning into paste was actually adding some of the ice cubes into there. And by the time it ran for 5 minutes, that ice had been broken up and was melted and did its job. So now we've added that bread to the almond, lemon, salt, hot sauce. And now we're going to add a cup of a light olive oil. We don't want to use extra virgin olive oil for this. It's just too heavy in a flavor. We want something light to where what's coming through is the lemon, the salt, and the garlic. So we add this, and we don't do it like salad dressing, adding it slowly or anything like that. We just throw it all in at once. And you're going to need a Cuisinart for this recipe. Now, this is one that you can't really do in a blender. I mean, you could, but it's going to be a little bit thinner. So, you know, and I have an industrial Cuisinart here, which, you know, you don't need the big one. A smaller one will work just fine. This recipe is going to give you about a quart, maybe a little bit more. And then we're going to time this, and we're going to mix this for at least 3.5 minutes. And before we let it go for that 3 minutes, we're going to scrape down the sides. And let it go. All right, while that's going, I'm going to fry some pitas. And I'm using avocado oil for this. I like avocado oil because it's a neutral oil. It's a healthy oil. We don't want to add any more olive oil flavor to the chips. I'm going to set that bowl on top there. We've got some breads that I bought at the store. What's nice, what I love about bread is you can buy it in a package at the store. You can bring it home, throw it in the oven, and it's like it transforms. It's great. You know, these pita breads and this Indian naan bread that you pick up in the store, it's really not much if you use it like this and make a sandwich. It's kind of dry and leathery and bleh. But you pan fry it in oil, and it's like it transforms it. It's wonderful. So, oil is heating up there. It's not quite hot enough. Our skordalia has been mixing for about a minute now. I'm going to work on some vegetables. I got a seedless cucumber. I always like using seedless cucumbers because they're firm, they're crunchy, and the seeds are very small and you don't have to scoop them out. You know, peeling vegetables right before you use them, it's kind of like eating a hard-boiled egg on the same day. You know, the day that you cook a hard-boiled egg, it's always, for me, so much better that day as opposed to when it sits in the refrigerator for a day or two. All my vegetable scraps are going in my compost. We're going to be starting a garden this summer here, and you know, we started composting about, oh, it's a little more than a year now, and boy, oh boy, I tell you, it's amazing the vegetable scraps that we use in this household, anyways. So I'm glad that we're doing it. You know, we all have to do our part. You know, these are the broccoli, little broccoli buds to use for dipping. Again, I got that compost pile. You know, what we've got going on in this Cuisinart is we've got emulsification going on. You know, we're suspending the fat globules in air, and we're creating the air by the bread. The bread is trapping the air and the oil and making it fluffy and smooth. Where, you know, you've got all that garlic in there, but now you've got a nice smooth souffle-like medium, which makes it easily spreadable and delicious, easy to eat. You know, I found that, you know, I've been on a new diet lately, you know, changed my habits, and I found the thing that I missed the most was textures. You know, I'm watching you know, I've been not eating a whole lot of grain, so you know, the things that I love the most are like bread and crackers, or my go-to snacks at night. And you know, I find that I miss the crunchy and the texture of bread. So, you know, we all, whether we know it or not, eat by texture. Okay, my oil here is smoking, so that means I'm ready. And see how we got a nice fry going here? That's what we want. We don't want to stick these pita breads in here while the oil isn't hot enough because they're just gonna sit in there and soak up all that oil, and that's not what we want. We want to have them brown here quickly and toast nicely. I mean, that's what we're looking for. This is looking really nice. I'll take a peek at it. Oh yeah, very nice. I'm going to get this here while it's get these vegetables out of the way. We'll get this large one going. You know, now depending on the bread, sometimes, you know, you can see how this is what you want. You want this to be at least 350 degrees. You know, you want to fry this bread. That way it's not soaking up the oil. I'm going to turn this oil off and I'll set this pan aside for now. Let's see how that looks. We've got our skordalia done. You know, it takes longer to prep everything for the skordalia than it does to actually make it. Shut the front door. Delicious. Garlicky, lemony, smooth, fluffy. We're going to take this one out of here. Now, when you're done with this, it's going to be a little bit loose. It's because the olive oil, when it's in the refrigerator, will help it solidify just a little bit more. Stick this back on here. I'm going to set this aside for now. And we're going to make a vegetarian, or a gluten-free one, not a vegetarian. They're both vegetarian, but this one's going to be gluten-free. So we're going to do the same thing. A cup of almond flour, 15 cloves of fresh peeled garlic, 4 ounces fresh lemon juice, looks like we need just a little bit more. Again, I can't stress enough about how important fresh lemon juice is. We use fresh lemon juice for cocktails. We made our own sweet and sour mix. The lemon juice was used in Greek dressing, Caesar dressing, when I made the Greek ribs. All the desserts. I mean, fresh lemon is just very important. I would urge not to buy lemon juice. You know, it's so much better squeezed fresh. It makes everything you eat and make delicious as well. I mean, cocktails were great with fresh sweet and sour mix. Again, half a tablespoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. In my case, I'm using a 1/2 teaspoon of my hot sauce. We're going to blend this just to get this going. And this is my little compost bucket. Garlic is all knocked down nicely. Now we're going to add, for the gluten-free version, we're going to add 12 ounces of sweet potato. And the sweet potato needs to be cooked a day ahead of time. And then, you know, you roast it whole in the oven for about an hour or so, depending how big the potatoes are. You put them in the fridge, let them get cold, and they kind of balloon up a little bit, and you just peel them like so. The reason why I use the sweet potato as opposed to a regular potato is, first of all, this is a resilient starch. And second of all, it doesn't get as gluey as a regular potato does. Some of the recipes from, the Greek recipes where they use the white potato, they get a little bit stretchy, gluey. The sweet potato doesn't give you that, which is really nice. Now, because the water is already in the potato, we're not going to be adding water. We're just going with the straight potato. And again, a cup of olive oil. And depending on the content, water content of the potatoes, because it varies, we have this extra one just in case we need it. And again, we're going to let this go for about 3 minutes or so. And we're going to be whipping air into it and making it smooth and fluffy. Wash this off. Scrape down the sides. Wow, this looks really nice. Get this cleaned up. My daughters, I've got about 300 pieces of pottery that the kids have made in their pottery classes. My pottery classes are going really well. I've got my own Medusa platters that I've been making. Really fun, I really enjoy it, making, shaping the clay and baking and painting and glazing and putting the emblem on them, and it's just been a really fun experience. I really enjoy it. So, like I said, you can see that this skordalia is like the consistency of thick pancake batter. Once it sits into the cooler, I'm going to show you once it sits in the cooler, it turns into this airy but firm. So it's like this coming out of the Cuisinart, but it's like this after it refrigerates because of that olive oil. And that looks beautiful. So we've got, set this aside here. We'll put this here. We'll put this one here. We'll set this here. And now we can kind of, let's get some of this sweet potato version. And that, God, that looks so good. I have to taste it. We might get another. Delicious. Gluten-free. I love this naan bread. It's just great stuff. The skordalia, you can, if you're using it for a party, you know, it's great to make it and use it the same day. It takes about 4 hours for it to cool off like it did. We've got these pitas. We've got, you know, cucumbers. We've got carrots. A little Greek olive on top. You know, you always want to make your food look delicious. You know, cherry tomatoes. Broccoli, florets. You know, you always want to make your food look delicious and appetizing. I mean, you want to invite people to eat food. It has to look as good as it tastes. You know, I mean, isn't that worth? I mean, that's color, made from scratch. Took us less than half an hour to whip all that up. I hope you try this recipe, and I would just like to thank everybody at this time to all the support that I've been given and the well wishes. I'm really enjoying this, and I look forward to filming many more episodes. So, from Medusa's Kitchen, I'm Chef Greg. Thank you so much, and I hope you try this one.